Okay. My name is Betty Kaufman. I'm a, a, a longtime visitor of Camp Hardtner and a longtime native plant person and a more recent master naturalist. And what I'm about to show you and talk about is native plants at Camp Hardtner. I've been going to Camp Hardtner for quite a number of years. And when I started working on becoming a master naturalist, the chapter that I was the president of and co-founder of here in the northeast corner of the state requires a project. And just a bunch of stuff come together, and the project that I did, this PowerPoint that I'm about to show you, is based on, it's different from, but it's based on the project that I did for the Louisiana Master Naturalist in order to become a certified Master Naturalist. And I can't see, I can only see a few people. I hate that. I really like to be able to see who I'm talking to, but this is the nature of Zoom. And I like my things to be interactive if at all possible. So what you're looking at here, of course, are 3 tree species that occur on Camp. That's the first thing they all have in common is that they are all 3 at Camp Hardtner. I'm guessing that this group knows what they are without any problem. We've got shortleaf pine on the left of your screen, Quercus marylandica, blackjack oak. I couldn't think of it, in the middle, and then longleaf pine on the right. But in addition to being all at Camp Hardtner, species that are at Camp Hardtner, they share the characteristic that they are all endemic species. And Camp Hardtner, for those of you who are tree people, is quite a wonderful place to go to look at trees. In fact, of the endemic species, Camp Hardtner has shortleaf pine, blackjack oak, longleaf pine, bald cypress, post oak, and southern red oak. And I'm going to have to keep moving this around because I can't see my own slides. Here we go. Darlington oak, and that's actually, I understand another common name is upland laurel oak. And I have that one listed as to be confirmed because Chris Doffett and I found it, but we were not, we found it when it didn't have, I don't know, it does have leaves. And I think I took that picture on this picture on that first day, but it's, we wanted to come back and confirm it, and we never did, but it is on the plant list for Camp Hardtner. The one that I cannot find and haven't found yet, but I feel certain has to be there somewhere, is Persea palustris, Swamp Bay. There's just all the conditions are there that it should be there, but I haven't found it yet. So one of the things, Camp Hardtner is good for trees, and we have some other species that I'll show you in a bit. Just to give you a little context about what and where we're talking about, Camp Hardtner is 160 acres in Grant Parish near Pollock, Louisiana. It is owned by the Episcopal Church in Western Louisiana, and part of my connection to it is I'm a deacon in the Episcopal Church, and that's how I got started going down there and spending time there. Its purpose is a summer camp for kids, and that's its primary purpose. And it started out in 1941 with a gift of 40 acres. In 1956, a second gift was made, same family, doubled it in size to 80 acres. And then in 1992, again, doubled in size with yet a third gift that made it 160 acres that it is today. And it is a church owned summer camp, and that's why there's a cross on the levee that forms that lake that you're looking at. To give you a little sense of the natural history of this, I'm going to show you a couple of maps here that tell a very sad story. This is an 1881 map of Louisiana, and as you can see, it's a map of the forest distribution of various, for the lumber industry, but distribution of forests. And the smallest area here, orange, the orange part, that's an area that's already been harvested. The merchantable pine has already been cut. The dark green area on this map is the longleaf pine, hilly longleaf pine land, and the medium green areas are pine flats that were all longleaf pine. And then the pale green area here in the upper northwest of the state is, of course, shortleaf pine. And this is what the state looked like in 1881. In 1921, the story had changed. This map uses some of the same colors, but they mean very different things. On this map, the orange is bluff land, and the shortleaf pine that was pale green on the other is this tan area up here in the northwest, and then the longleaf pine is all of this yellow. But the numbers on this map are the telling story. And so I'm going to zoom in for a close-up. Here's Grant Parish. Each parish has a set of numbers, as you can see. And the first number of each parish is the total acreage of the parish. And for Grant Parish, where Camp Hardtner is 437,120 acres. The second figure is the virgin timber acreage that was left in 1921, 25,000 acres. And the third figure is the land that has been cut over. 355,000 acres of longleaf pine in Grant Parish alone had been cut over down to the stumps. Statewide, this little portion of the chart that I put in the inset here, statewide, you can see that the cut over land totaled 12,725,000 acres, of which, 5 million plus acres of longleaf, 3 million plus acres, almost 4 million of shortleaf, 2 million from the alluvial regions and from the bluff areas even. The land had been virtually denuded. And this red area shows you, the best I can guess, that this right here is where Camp Hardtner would be, obviously in the middle of longleaf forest in the early, before the turn of the century. Here's what cut over land looks like. Okay, this is Kisatchie National Forest land in 1930. And we had millions and millions of acres of land that looked just like this in the early 1900s in this state. Tragically, a very, very sad situation. Not quite sure why they thought it was okay to cut like those trees like that, but they did cut away. But there's a good side to the story, and all of this gets back to Camp Hardtner. Henry Hardtner was a man ahead of his time. He was from Urania, which is just a few miles north on Highway 165, just a little bit north of Camp Hardtner. He was Louisiana's first conservationist, and his family owned the Urania Lumber Company, and he preached reforestation. He basically was one of the few who said, we can't just cut the trees, we've got to replant trees. And so he set out and he bought thousands of acres of land at $1, cut over land at $1 an acre, and began to plant trees. And his tragic death, he was driving to, he lobbied in Baton Rouge for years for laws that required reforestation. And on one of his trips to Baton Rouge, he failed to stop at a train crossing, and he was killed by an oncoming train. And his brother Quentin gave that first 40 acres of land to the Episcopal Church. They were Episcopalians, as that became the beginning of Camp Hardtner. And his widow, Juliet, gave the last 80 acres that doubled it in size for the second time. The deeds, Camp Hardtner has a bunch of documents. I went through all of them. And the interesting thing is that middle donation of 40 acres is really murky as to exactly how that happened. But these two were very, very clear. But it all came from the Hardtner family, and that's why it's called Camp Hardtner today. So all of the land, 160 acres, came ultimately from the Hardtner family. So here's an overview. This is Camp Hardtner from Google Maps. I did a screen capture in 2019 to get this, and you'll see several versions of this. One in which this little lake right here has been drained, so they don't all look alike because they were taken at different times. But the Episcopal Church has tried to be a good steward of Camp Hardtner, and so has cooperated with the state on various things. I don't know how the initiative that Fish Creek forms the northern boundary of Camp Hardtner, and it has been in 1970. The LDWF put that creek in the Natural and Scenic River program. And then in 2010, the Camp Hardtner, the church initiated the process of having it become a part of the Louisiana Forest Stewardship Program. How I come into that picture is I had the idea because when I was becoming a master naturalist, I met Chris Doffett, who's in charge of the Natural Heritage Program for the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries. And I learned about that program, and I thought we need to put Camp Hardtner in that program. And so that's one of the reasons I became involved. Just to orient you a little bit more, Fish Creek is the northern boundary. Camp Hardtner Ridge is an active public road access. The eastern boundary of camp is this line down the right-hand side of my screen. The southern boundary it's very clear the camp is pretty well bounded with trails and blazes on trees. And the western boundary comes up here. The only place it's murky is right here in this area. These are artificial lakes. As you can see, the little levees here, they're called the Three Sisters, and they're named after Hardtner's daughters. And I don't know, the top one is called Violet. That's the only one I know. But it's not clear because Camp Hardtner is pretty much a rectangle, but it's not 100% certain where the boundary goes here. Even the current director is not sure. Does it follow the creek or does it actually make a corner out here into the, not clear. This is the largest, this is Lake Bordelon, and then all of these buildings, this is a hotel, motel type rooms for people to stay in, and a meeting room and cabins here, and there's a chapel here, and the dining hall is here, a pavilion here, swimming pool, tennis courts, etc. This is important because we will use this as a landmark. This is a shop. This is where all the maintenance equipment is kept, and the shop for maintaining the property. So in 2000, the church commissioned a site analysis. And this information is very interesting. Camp Hardtner Road is on a ridge. And by the way, it curves off of 165 and then runs parallel to one. So 165 would be to the left of us over here. And this road runs parallel to this for a ways and then curves back and joins it again. And this is a ridge, and all of the land, everything else slopes away. This ridge is 160, as I recall, feet above sea level. And the lowest spot on the camp is down here at the base of these three little lakes. And it is 32 feet below sea level, I believe. So this is the lowest point on the camp. The whole area up here, you'll notice that, Hardtner planted his trees in rows. And you can see that this is all southeast and southwest quadrants of camps are mixed forest, but a lot of it is loblolly pine. And this, but you can see, is not planted in rows because it was not harvested in the same way or replanted in the same way. This is the floodplain of Fish Creek. And this is, really thick and swampy and etc. Down here. These two, this is the settlement ponds for the sewage system at the camp. So in 2018, I started a project on iNaturalist to assess what was at Camp Hardtner and began working on traveling around the camp, walking, hiking. This is before I even got the idea of putting it in the Natural Heritage Program. I started this project on iNaturalist, and today, actually, I added a couple more last night, so 822 is not quite accurate. 278 species, but we're interested in plants today. And so I made this graphic for us. This is one of the cool things about iNaturalist is you can filter your observations. So I went into my project on Camp Hardtner. I filtered the observations for plants only. And so every one of these little green teardrops on this map is a spot where I stood with a camera and took a picture of a plant or several pictures of a plant and put it up on iNaturalist as an observation. And so you can see I've pretty much been around the camp. And I have a total of 669 plant observations, and 508 of those are research grade. In case you don't know about iNaturalist, if you put up an observation and somebody else comes along and agrees with you about the identity at the species or genus level, it will become a research grade, and it's a huge database, and scientists do use it. And so I have a pretty good track record here. From 77% of my plant observations to be research grade is pretty good. That's a little bit higher than many people. And that is because I do take great care in photographing the plants to try to make the data and the evidence that I'm putting up there good. In assessing Camp Hardtner, with the help of Chris Doffett, the first walkabout we did in assessing it for the Natural Heritage Program was on the 18th of December in 2018. It took us a couple of years, and I continued making observations, all of these, many of them after Chris had moved on to other things, and it took us several years to document. But what the LDWF looks for in choosing a site to make it part of the Natural Heritage Program is plant communities. And this is what we found at Camp Hardtner that justified putting the entire camp into the LDWF Natural Heritage Program. This first, the blue area, this is the floodplain of Fish Creek, and it does flood with some regularity. And this little circle, this is a little tiny pocket. I call it the Pocket West wetland. I think it might be partly seepage from underneath the levee here, but it's wet, and it has specifically wetland plants in it. So we found some things of interest here. Over here, the red circle is, this is a power line right away, goes through here. And there's a seep here, or a bog, or it's on the hillside, but it's often wet, and it has wetland plants in it. And back here, this is the shop again. And back here, we found an area that we call the glade. And glades are, this is the most central to, most of the glades are Western Louisiana that the LDWF has identified. This one is closer to the center of the state than any of the others, and it has some glade type plants in it. So I'm going to show you a little bit more about each one of these areas. First, the Fish Creek and Pocket Wetland, characterized by plant diversity, sedges, rushes, aquatic trees, hardwoods, etc. Lots and lots of fungi. The Mycological Society used to do their winter foray, and there in that area would be where they would find the rarest mushrooms. And there's also lots of birds and mollusks. Unfortunately, the LDWF lost their mollusk expert just as I started this project, and so there might be rare and threatened mollusks in Fish Creek, but I can't be certain of that. Here are some of the plants I found over there. Cranefly orchid, Tipillaria, on the slope going down toward the creek. Wild azalea, okay, mountain azalea, Rhododendron canescens is over there. There's a couple spots of it. Inland sea oats all up along Fish Creek. There's lots of inland sea oats, Canthanthium, and sugarcane plume grass. And in the water, standing in the creek itself, a couple of water tupelo, Nyssa aquatica. Nice, big, fabulous trees. River birch. This is just a small sapling. I don't know if there must be a bigger one nearby, but this is the little one that I found. Sourwood. And this is where the Darlington oak, or the upland laurel oak, if whatever you prefer calling it, that's where this one is located. Not close to the water. These two were not as close to, they were about midway between the creek and where the hill really starts going up. Musselwood, lots of musselwood. And this is what I learned as a Viburnum dentatum, but I've changed that, or I've given that as an AKA here because on iNaturalist, they have instituted a taxon swap, and it is now considered to be Viburnum scabrellum on iNaturalist. Sparkleberry, big, as you can see by the size of this branch here. There's some big arboreums, Vaccinium arboreums, fruiting. And then this is what in that little tiny pocket wetland, there's a black willow and sedge, yellow nut sedge. And this is the only place I have ever seen. I know you see Juncus effusus everywhere, but this is the only place I've ever seen Juncus coriaceus. So that's that area. Let's move now up to the hillside bog. It's on a hillside again in a power line right away. It's often, but not always wet, and there are lots of, again, sugarcane plume grass appears there right on the side of the hill. Sweet bay, several sweet bays along there. chokeberry rather, Aronia arbutifolia. This was a new one to me when Chris Doffett pointed it out. And dwarf sundew on the ground. Laurifolia, Smilax laurifolia. I have found all of the Smilaxes I know on Camp Hardtner somewhere, but the laurifolia only occurs in a few places, and this is one of them. There's lots of Smallii and Glauca and rotundifolia, and some Bonanox and some laurifolia. And Pamela, I've seen Pamela in the woods as well. So I don't know about earleaf if that I've not seen that here, and I'm not sure how common that is in Louisiana. And then candy root, Polygolanana, right there in that area. The glade is glades are defined as openings in the forest. They usually are a slope with rocky outcroppings, and they typically are wildflower wonderlands. And so we did find this area. This here, I'll put in my green arrow to show you. That's the shop roof that we could see in the overhead view. You can walk behind the shop and right down into this area, and you can see how open it is. They're rock outcroppings, and all of these are liatris. They're not in bloom at this point, but there's lots of wildflowers back there. Here's a look at some of the wildflowers that are back there. There's a slender blue stem. And this is the area where we are seeing some longleaf pine springing up, volunteer. We're now burning this area every so often, and by golly, the longleaf pine are trying to come back. There are 2 or 3. This is in the grass stage. There's one that's 2 or 3 or 4 feet tall. There are several longleaf pine saplings growing back there that nobody planted. They're just coming back up. Pine Woods rose pink and flat top goldenrod are back there. Rattlesnake master, boneset. And I think that there are 3 species of liatris, but every time I've gone and tried to document that, I come home with the same 2. So I'm not sure. I could be wrong about that. This might be it, but there are areas back there in the glade that are just a purple haze in the summertime when the liatris is blooming, just purple haze. This is a fragment of our spreadsheet that Chris and I created for him to use as evidence to put at the camp in the Natural Heritage Program, and that did happen. That did happen. Okay, that was what the Natural Heritage Program work that we did. I have a few more goodies that for plant nerds at Camp Hardtner. Some things that I found on my own or with the help of the people, the camp director and his administrative assistant who knows the camp better. They would call me and say, hey, we saw this, we saw that, and I would go down and explore. So here's a few goodies. This is the Pine Woods Rose Gentian. The glade would be over, here's the shop again, and the glade would be over here off the left, off of the screen, and there are a few down there, but the real mother lode of rose gentian is along this trail here. I only photographed a few of the plants, but as I came in here and walked into this trail, all over, all up and down and both sides of this trail, just tons of these babies. Beautiful, beautiful plants. Lots of them there. This is an area, this is the violet of the lakes, and this is you'll hear me say this more than once, sort of the mother lode of rose pogonia. I've never seen so many, but along here, along the levee here, and all along this side of the lake, wherever there's an opening in the shrubs, in the bushes, and the trees along the edge of the lake, wherever there's an opening that the sun hits the ground, there's bunches and bunches of rose pogonias. Rose pogonia is a wild orchid, and it's a single stem. It's got a single stem with one leaf that clasps the stem and stands vertically along the stem. And then at the top of that is this lovely little pink bloom that looks kind of like a snake with its mouth open, if you look at it from the right angle. And I presume this is a single sepal sticking out the back here. That's what I think that is. That's rose pogonia, and again, I took these pictures in April the 24th, late April is when those flowers are in bloom. This is an interesting area that I think is what is next on my PowerPoint. I call it the dome. Yes, okay, the dome. It's weird. It's high. It is perfectly well drained, but it is often wet. I have a feeling that there's a spring or something underneath it. I don't know that, but here's what I found. They do mow it from time to time, but I've just never seen anything except grass and some wildflowers try to grow there. And some stuff that's on the ground that really surprises me, and I'll show you. First of all, this observation way over here at the edge, that's this ladies tress wild orchid. These things also, by the way, grow on the lawn around the buildings, a lot of them, but this one is out here. These are other things. I think here's the multiple patches of this bright green, even in the winter like that. I took this in December on that first walk that Chris Stoffett and I did. And you'll see these bright green patches, and those are Nuttall's Aurelius goldenrod, Bigelowia Nattalii, all over the top of this dome. But at the same time, we've got lichens growing up, mealy pixie cup growing on the ground, and Drosera again. And you can see that there's bits of moss and stuff. It's wet up there when you would not expect it to be wet up there. Very interesting. And here, this is in the, when did I take this picture? Yeah, in October. This is the dome from ground level. And as you can see, it's pretty well covered with angustifolias and some sixth graders. I took a bunch of kids down there on a field day. And they were busy but the whole area was covered with these wildflowers blooming like crazy.
We call that tick field at camp.
Say it again.
That's tick field.
Tick field?
You labeled it the dome, but at camp we call it tick field.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Summer, that is in fact what it becomes.
A tick field, as in
tick field, as in like you're getting ticks because you're out there in the.
Okay,
but it's always the place they mow to play like the big games.
How often do they mow it?
Oh man, I haven't been there regularly in 100 years. But back when I was in camp, it was mowed for camp sessions in the summers.
Okay. Because I've rarely seen it when it was been freshly mowed. And so that was why I was curious about how often it gets mowed.
Late 80s, early 90s. So, and my son's been since, so he might be a better barometer, but you know.
Thank you for telling me that. I did not know that.
We call it tick field.
Tick field because of the ticks. Okay.
Exactly.
I've never actually had a problem with picking up ticks at Camp Hardtner, but I usually spray myself pretty good before I go walking.
I haven't either, but it was always a thing like that. Okay, we're meeting at tick field. It was just the thing that they called it.
Right. Okay.
And for all I know, it could be something so different now. Again, I'm old enough to have a kid who's gone and through, you know.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for that. Anybody else, by the way, if you got a question or you got something to say, pipe up. I can't see you right now, but pipe up and let me know. One day I got a call from the administrative assistant at camp, and she says, the Jack in the Pulpits are in bloom. And I'm like, Jack in the Pulpits? And yes. And so I went out there, and now we're at the other side of the road. Most of that stuff, et cetera, is on the west side of Camp Hardtner Road. Now we're on the east side of Camp Hardtner Road. This is Lake Bordelon again, and the chapel and the dining hall, et cetera, up here. And if you come in here and come down across the end of the lake here and sorry about that. Come into this trail here, there's a really interesting, all of these observations are Jack in the Pulpit. Okay, every one of these little green teardrops here is a Jack in the Pulpit observation. And the Jack in the big, beautiful, blooming like crazy all over in there. And I did not photograph every plant. There were hundreds of plants. But I got interested in this area because so I'm going to talk some more about it and show you some more stuff. I'm actually calling it BJ's Bagel, and I don't know, Charles Allen can correct me. I don't know if it's proper to call this a bagel or not, but it was certainly had some of the characteristics to me of a bay gall. So this is the close-up, and this is the trail that you come in on right here, and it's wet. It was that, well, I was there in, I was there in March, I believe, and it was pretty wet. These observations are not, they are the Jack in the Pulpits plus everything else that I photographed while I was in there. On the other side here, this is a sandy bank stream, and the banks are kind of steep. And this is slopes from the edge of the stream down to the trail. And here's what all I found there. First of all, along the edge of the stream, lots of horse sugar. And this horse sugar was interesting in that it was covered with these galls, horse sugar galls. And I understand they are edible. And I didn't know that when I was out there, but somebody should go out and pick a bunch because there were sure lots of them out there. So this was all along this edge of this stream was where the Symplochus was. Royal fern and sensitive fern were both there, down a bit on the slope between the stream and the trail. That's the back of the sensitive fern. I really wasn't sure. I thought at first it was what's called, what is it called? Chain fern, but it was not. It was the areolata. It was not that. It was sensitive fern. This little tree, that's Daniel Chapman, who's the current director of the camp. And we had, it started sprinkling while we were out there that day. And we had taken refuge under this little tree because it has these nice horizontal branches with leaves on it. And then I turned and started looking at the tree, and I realized it is black tupelo. And Daniel is just coming out from another tree talking on his phone. Here are the leaves, and here is the trunk. And I told Daniel, I don't know if it's happened or not. I'm afraid that this pine tree, of which we do not need, you know, we've got way more pine trees than we do tupelos. I really hope that I told him, I said they should try to very carefully remove it because I'm afraid it's going to kill this little Sylvatica here. But there, that tree was growing there. Again, this is on the slope. The stream would be on our left in this picture over here, and we're sloping down towards the trail, towards the right. Bladder sedge, bone set, both there. Crossvine, and the reason that there was a pine tree that had fallen, and it was covered, a huge crossvine on it, covered with blooms. So they were mostly on the ground, but it was again in that area. And then this little thing that I have never found anywhere, a slender yellow wood sorrel. Don't know how common that is, but I did find it there. And Charles, you'll be this. There was a lot of witch hazel saplings along the creek as well, and leaf rollers, witch hazel leaf rollers. I believe that is a moth. Am I not correct? Is that a moth? The Dichlomeris liguella. I think that's a moth. And they were all over in these witch hazels.
Dichlomeris is a moth genus, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I figured they were moths. I did not unroll one. I wish I would have. I didn't unroll one and take a picture of the caterpillar that was in there, but they were sure thick in that particular area. So that's all that the plants that I have. There were a few others, but these are the ones, most important ones to me. And I'm again not sure if that's properly called a baygall, but it was sure an interesting area. I call this little area the last frontier. It's the area out here around the Carson branch of Fish Creek goes along here, and the camp boundary is here somewhere. And these are the settlement ponds, and this is a fairly sharp slope from the edge of the settlement ponds down to the creek. And this is the one area I had not gone to, but in what year? Yeah, it was in 2022. The master naturalists were out here again, and I got some master naturalists to go with me. And I wanted to walk all the way around this end of the camp. It gets really thick over here. We also found there was a beaver dam down here. There was a lot of water, and we didn't make it. We made it this far, but there's still an area to the left of the picture here that has not been explored, that I have not fought my way through. I really want to get down there, but I love this area because I found, well, first of all, these over here, this is a snake root. I think that's this observation right here. And the lizard tail is somewhere like right in here. But then on this slope here, I found my favorite triumvirate of wildflowers, native plants, and that is the buckeye in bloom, cranefly orchid, and trillium all over that slope going from the settlement ponds down towards Fish Creek. That was in in April that we were there, early April. I have never gone back to see if the cranefly orchids bloom in August. I should, but they're there in the spring for sure.
So
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay. So this area is not burned, correct?
I'm not sure if they've burned this area or not. It has a fairly heavy overstory, but it's kind of open under there because the sun has to hit the ground in order for cranefly orchids to grow. You have to have some sun hitting the ground, I think. And would that be correct, Charles? And the trillium. So it's kind of open, but I don't know if they've ever burned it or not. I've never known them to burn it.
Probably wouldn't burn. It's probably not enough grass or pine needles to burn. Probably wouldn't burn unless it's really dry. Yeah.
Oh, I'll bet you're right, because there are not very many pine trees in there.
Okay,
not as
in
many
that
pines
area,
as
there
there.
aren't many
Yeah.
pines.
Yeah.
You have an awful lot of plants that are similar to the plants that I have on my 45 acres in Tylertown, Mississippi. So I'm very excited seeing what you've got here. I'm dying to burn it.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't know that we can because it's I'm not sure that we can. It hasn't been touched in a very long time. And the leaf litter on the ground would create quite a blaze. Quite a
Yeah.
blaze. So I'm not sure that we're going to do it, but it's exciting to see what you're doing. I appreciate it, Betty.
Thank you. So I have to intrigue you a little bit with an ID, a perplexity I have. I call it the case of the yuckety yuccas, and this is why. So here's the story. In 2018, I found this yucca plant at Camp Hardtner, and I photographed it and I posted it on INAT, and I ID'd it as Yucca filamentosa. And it was confirmed almost right away. I did not know the person who confirmed it at that point in time. It has taken me time to learn who the good confirmers are, who the true experts are on iNaturalist, and that is part of what you really need to learn in order to use the site well. But nobody else ever confirmed it. And over time, I did learn some more about this person via social media and began to question his reliability, especially given what happens with further yucca posts, which I'll show you in a moment. But the night before last, as I was putting the final touches on this PowerPoint, I checked back again at this observation, and I'm like, oh goodness, oh my word. At this point in time, I know enough about this person. I don't trust him at all. And I checked his profile, and he has been suspended. He has been suspended from iNaturalist, and I don't know what you have to do to be suspended from iNaturalist, but it was telling. But this observation is still there. It's still part of the Camp Hardtner assessment project, and it is still up as Yucca filamentosa. So in 2018, later in 2018, I'm pull up my last, okay, in November of 2018, that earlier, I did that in April. So along in November of 2018, I was going through some old photographs, and I found this one that I had taken from 2017. This was before I was on iNaturalist, and so I decided to post some of those. So I posted this photograph on iNaturalist, and again, I identified it as common yucca, Yucca filamentosa. And it was immediately confirmed by a well-known, highly reliable iNat user. But almost immediately, a big debate broke out. And I'm going to show you the debate in just a moment, so that I ultimately switched the identification of this plant to genus Yucca. So here's the discussion. Here's my first post. Yucca filamentosa was my suggested ID. Rocky Branch, Rocky Branch is Kelby Uchley. and he's a friend, and he's a highly valued naturalist, a well-known naturalist of this area, and he's pretty darn good. And he came along and confirmed it as Yucca filamentosa. But within a very short period of time, along comes this guy with this impossible set of initials to say, and he says, nope, Yucca louisianensis. So Kelby got back to you get when somebody disagrees with you, you get a notification. So both of the people who have identified get a notification, and Kelby made it back there first, and he says very politely, how do you distinguish the plant in this image from a young Y. filamentosa? And I got there moments later, and I said, my question is the same. I know exactly where the plant is located, and can go back to check the evidence. What should I look for? The discussion of these things on iNaturalist is usually pretty polite, but it will be assertive. People want to know if they're being called wrong, they want to know. And so here's the continuation of the discussion. This guy again comes back, and you'll notice by his writing here that he's obviously not a native English speaker. People on iNat are from around the world. I don't know where he is from. I did check his profile just 2 days ago when I was again researching all of this and getting this ready. And he has not been active on iNaturalist since 2023. And he doesn't have that many posts, but what he has done looks credible to me. And he says, not all yuccas with filaments are filamentosa. Leaf character indicates louisianensis. Is also reported as native of the Grant Parish. And then he says it would be fine. I think he means it would be fine if you could observe further yuccas there. It would be great if you can photograph also details, leaves, especially the inflorescence, the flowers, including inside as well as seed pods, for example. Before I get to this and can respond, another guy weighs in, and his name is Eric Keefe. Now, he is highly credible, highly credible. I checked his profile. He's actually a yucca. Yuccas is one of his areas of expertise. And he says Yucca louisianensis. And he then further explains that filamentosa has wider leaves. But he clarifies it does grow. It does grow in Grant Parish, but it has wider leaves. And Rocky Branch comes along again and says, whoops, I went the wrong way. The plant very well be louisianensis. I suspect it will take a flowering stalk to make a definitive identification. And then he points out that in fact, Atlas of Vascular Flora of Louisiana does list filamentosa in Grant Parish. So I come along after this discussion. I did actually ask Kelby when I should go looking for inflorescences, and he gave me some advice, and I've been back. And so I have been checking out the yuccas every time I go to Camp Hardtner ever since. And this is an observation I made in 2019, and I posted it as Yucca louisianensis, and I put some detail shots here, including one with my fingers to show that the blades of this plant are really only about as wide as my fingers, which is really a very narrow leaf for a yucca, seems to me anyway. I have never found a key that tells me exactly what the dimensions of the leaves should be. I need to find a key. This one has been up since 2019 as Yucca louisianensis, and it has never been confirmed by anybody, and it's also never been disputed. So here's where we stand today. I have now observed 6. This is the first one. This F right here is the very first one that I posted as, and is still up there as filamentosa. And this is the one that is up there as genus Yucca because this is the one that the debate broke out about, this E right here. EF, yes, F would be the last one. E would be the next to last one. A, B, C, and D are all yuccas that I have found in various parts of the camp. All look the same to me, those narrow leaves, filaments, but narrow leaves. And I posted them all as Yucca louisianensis, and not a one of them has been confirmed. So I can't get a confirmation on these plants to save my life. Here is, I had Daniel call me and tell me when it was flowering so I could come down and capture the flowering stalk. And I think this is with observation A, this one right here, the flowering stalk of the yuccas. So I still don't know. I think that they are Yucca louisianensis, but I really don't know. And I would really love to be able to solve that problem. These kind of things stick in my mind as unfinished business. I don't like these what is it things. So if you all want to get involved in helping me figure this out, I would be delighted. But as you can see there, I also saw some yuccas. My recollection, only one time, Chris Doffin and I walked this eastern boundary of camp right along here, and there were some big yucca plants in the edges of the woods along here, and I didn't leave the trail to go check them out more thoroughly and take pictures of them, so I don't know. These could be something completely different, but anyway, these all look alike to me, and I think they are Louisianensis, but I'm not sure. Okay, so this is my bibliography for my project. And that's the end of this, and I'm going to bail out of here so I can stop sharing and see if I can see you all again. So there you have it, some of the native plants of Camp Hardtner, and I wanted to if there are any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them. And I was just, if anybody is curious about going there and planning a field trip there, I would be more than happy. We can go. The camp is, we can't go in June and July when there are tons of kids there. That would not be a good time to go, but we can go other times. And there are several really good and fun hikes that one could go on to see some of this stuff.
Betty, a great PowerPoint. On the yuccas, have you checked the flora of North America?
Would there be a key there? I don't know that I have.
Yeah.
There would probably be a key there. Okay.
I think it's been done. All you have to do is type in yucca on Google and then put flora of North America, and you can see it.
And look for the
Eric
link.
Keith is an expert. He actually described a new species of yucca from Newton County, Texas, as new to science. So he worked at Fort Polk years ago. So
Who is that?
Yeah, Eric.
Who
Keith.
is it?
Eric Keith, the one you had
Eric
on there.
Keith. Yeah. So you know that name. I did not know that name.
Oh, yeah.
I looked him up.
I see him quite often in the Texas Native Plant Society. And one other suggestion I would for you, go to Cernek and see if there are any specimens of any new plants at Camp Hardtner. You can follow Grant Parish and look at the herbarium specimens from years ago and figure out if they are from, you may add some species on Cernek that are not, there'll be actual herbarium specimens of the plants from there.
CER.
SERNEC. You can, once you get into it, you can ask for Louisiana, you can ask for Grant Parish, of course, and you'd have to look and see if it's Camp Hardtner. But I encourage lots of people to go to Cernek, which is a wonderful, and I'm kind of biased to have quite a few specimens on there too.
Cool. That's a good reason. Okay. Plug in my computer here.
But that's wonderful. We hopefully we got it recorded and can share. Yeah.
Did I do time like 6:57? Well, I just about used up an hour. Well, thank you for all being interested in it. I love doing this kind of thing, and this has been one of my favorite projects. And this is now, I've actually, the basic PowerPoint, I have revised it 6 or 7 times and shown it to different groups. And so it has been a long lasting and a fun thing. And I haven't been at Camp Hardtner as much lately. I've been incredibly busy the last couple of years with another part-time job, but this summer I do intend to be back down there again. And I love taking hikes there. I can arrange with Daniel to bring people, and there's an outdoor pavilion that we can use, and it has bathrooms in it, and so I'm willing to take people there anytime they want to go.
One other thing you should mention is that the Louisiana Native Plant Society met there for a few years. I forget how many.
Yes, that's true. They did, and I regret that they quit going there, as a matter of fact. But I always think that Camp Hardtner is so much more interesting plant-wise than the Woodworth. But the truth is, we couldn't go back there now because the board of directors of Camp Hardtner have decided that they needed to focus solely on the mission as an economic to sort of the camp does not have year-round staff. So when groups go there, not during summer camp, they have to hire staff to come in to do various things. And so they have decided to not do that. And they are only doing summer camp now. Other times, again, I can take people there for hike anytime. They welcome people to come and hike, but they are not open for groups like the Native Plant Society. But you know what else I really want to do, Charles, is I want to get Camp Hardtner in the Native Plant Society's natural habitat program.
Oh, so it's not there yet.
Qualify. It's not there yet, and I
Oh.
just have not had time. It's just it's
I know
matter of doing.
that Chris Doffett and I did find Ophioglossum. I don't know if you have that little fern on your list.
Yes.
Right outside. But yeah.
We do. Yes, we do. And Chris and I saw it one time on one of our hikes, and I have not been able to find it again. But yes, we do. I have it. It is on the list. We found it.
I think there's a herbarium specimen that he and I made in it, so it should be on Cernak too.
Cool. I'm sure that there are, as you can see by that map of my observations, I've done a lot of them, 600 and some, but there's areas that I haven't been to, other areas that, and I don't know, in that Piney Woods areas that there might not be a whole lot of interest, but there's areas that I have not walked through. I hope one day to have it all sort of evenly covered. I typically go, by the way, who was it that said you have a child who's there?
My son helped start Camp Able.
Oh, okay, really? Oh,
I can't even remember what year that was. Like,
yeah.
14, 15, I can't remember.
Okay.
He was going to camp in Mississippi at Bratton Green.
Okay.
And they have a very, very, very established special camp.
Okay.
They have 18 and up, and then they have a lower aged group. But he went over and helped start Camp Able at Camp Hardtner. And it was special to me because I'd grown up going to Camp Hardtner. I feel like there could be huge interest for reunion sort of folks or people who are alumni of Camp Hardtner in doing, like, spread people out and help people. I mean, teach people more about even people who are inexperienced and uneducated about native plants. I mean, let's have them go out and have like a section that they go out and look at and say, oh, look what we found, or teach them more about the difference in the ferns that have, that kind of thing. Save seeds and sell those. No kidding. Like, people who are camp alumni get married there.
Yes, I know. I know the loyalty is strong.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Here's part of my vision too. And again, I have been working this part-time job and it is coming to an end and I hope to have some more time, but I really would like to talk to the board of directors and Daniel about running some biology camps and some botany camps.
Gosh, that's a great idea. Getting kids interested in
kids interested. Yes, yes.
I will come there and I will help you lead that.
Well, help me with that. All right. I'm going to
teach you. I will teach my dream job is to teach people about being outside.
Absolutely. Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, I really, really think so. What Daniel has been having me come down the last several years, I've gone down to training camp to teach the counselors something about what's there so that they can pass on some energy to the kids about it. Because, yeah, I mean, get these kids involved and interested, and they will be. If the counselors are enthusiastic about something, the kids will be. So.
Yes, I totally agree. They're counselors who are just in charge of trails. Like, they're the person who goes out and takes nature hikes. Their sole job all summer long. So that person especially needs to know what they're
looking at. Exactly. And they don't. Yeah, they don't necessarily.
Right.
So I love teaching them about the Drosera, because that's a carnivorous plant. And so I have heard stories now about the counselors when kids are misbehaving that they've been threatened with being fed to the carnivorous plants at Camp Hardtner.
Nice.
Which is funny when you know what you're talking about, this little teeny plant.
Yeah, not going to eat a kid, but you can share them with it. Sure, that's a great idea.
Good. Okay, we're gonna try to do another one on April 2nd. Is that the first Tuesday in April? And if anybody wants to volunteer, I know somebody to present for it. Otherwise, one of the things I could do is that thing that I did at Hilltop Arboretum, and they had to cut me off. I was going too long, but it was only 30 minutes. So I still have that one on native plant selections for Louisiana. We might, and I see Jennifer's on here, we might get her to talk about medicinal plants too, sitting up there. So we got some other options, so we can look around for April 2nd, but let's shoot for April 2nd.
That sounds fascinating. I would love to hear about that, Jennifer, and I would love to hear yours too, Charles. Either one, I'm game for. So
whatever you want, Dr. Allen. Just told me something. No.
Well, thank y'all for, and Betty, thank you very much. It's a great presentation.
You're very welcome. My pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Good night, all.
Okay, good night.